Hello everyone and welcome to another very nice game from the Computer Chess Rating List competition, the CCRL, and it's a game between two engines that are not perhaps at the level of Stockfish and Lila Chess Zero, so they're not 36, 37, 3800 rated engines, rather only 3000 and 3100, but still the game is absolutely incredible. Again, I scavenged through all the games and it's not easy. I have to go through them. Okay, I can download them by openings, but there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands, and I handpicked them. And this is the okay, I didn't go through too much trouble. I went through some 50 games before finding this one, and it's actually a miniature, which at this level of play, it's almost unheard of. I mean, imagine but it's okay. In human terms, it's not unheard of. You do have super grandmasters where you just run into a miniature, and usually because one of the players forgets a move, and then thinks he's protected by the safe waters of theory, when in case that's not the reality of things. So let's check it out. It's a clash between bitbit 1.2 and EveAnn 3.0. So in terms of skill, bitbit, I can even, here we have, it was developed by Joost from Germany, and it excels at tactical battles. So not as good as, slow maneuvering games, but in sharp tactical positions, it does incredibly well. And even though it's lower rated than EveAnn, this is a sharp tactical position, whereas EveAnn, it's a defensive engine, defends really, really well, but sometimes downplays, underestimates the severity of the position. And in terms of styles, this would be as if Nejmedino or Tal, let's say, was playing against Tigran Petrosyan. So incredibly interesting. And let's check it out. So bitbit with white opens with pawn to e4. And some of you asked in the comments of the previous video that when I'm showing engine games, I should also mention that when do we leave the book, or rather when do we leave their engine book, because sometimes, not sometimes, most of the times, you don't just allow two engines to play, whatever they want, or they just play, whatever is safest and has best chance for a winning probability. But here they actually have, okay, you're forced to play these 6 moves, and then black is forced to play these 6 moves, and then we have now you play whatever you want. And unfortunately for the CCRL, I don't have the exact moment where this happens, but it's mostly in the first 6 moves or in the first 12 moves. Basically here this game features one move where I'm particularly interested if they're still forced to play that or not. I will email them, for future references, so I will have a better idea. But for this one, I actually just don't know. But that's no reason for us not to enjoy this game. So okay, pawn to e4, we have pawn to e5, and knight to f3. We have knight to c6, so just a standard, it can be anything, and bishop to c4. The Italian game is on the board. We have bishop to c5 and pawn to b4. The Evans Gambit line of the Gioco Piano. We have bishop captures on b4 and pawn to c3. We have bishop to a5, and like in the previous video, first link in the description below will be my sort of tutorial on the Evans Gambit, where I cover all of the retreats of the bishop. Some of them are good, some of them are not as good, some of them are just bad, so you know what you are doing. We have queen to b3, and already some excitement here. d4 is pretty much an automatic. If you play against the Evans Gambit, they go bishop a5, you will probably play d4 right away. But here we have this queen to b3 line, which is sort of considered an inaccuracy. So I believe at this point they're still playing arranged moves. And here we have queen to f6. Now, in terms of human play, for example, this position has been reached in the game Robert Hibna, which I've used the honor with the quote above the board, against the legendary John Nunn. Or John Nunn. and Hibna defeated him with this queen to f6 move, and black has nothing to worry about here. This is a perfectly fine position for black. You have to defend the f7 pawn before you go for your usual anti-Evans maneuver, that is bishop to b6 and knight to a5, and then you just gobble up the light square bishop. For those of you who don't remember, Hibna, he died, I believe, this year in January, but he was, you know, back in the 70s, he was a very, very strong player, legend in Germany, if you will. He played in the 1971 candidates matches, and he did incredibly well against Tigran Petrosyan, and he blundered a full piece like in game 7, and then he threw the match. Tigran won, then faced Fischer. Fischer obliterated him, and well, you know the rest. Basically, whenever we talk about it, we talk about it through the lens of the great Bobby Fischer, but Robert Hibna also was a part of that story. And here we have castles kingside, and now comes bishop to b6. So just preparing the standard knight to a5 maneuver. That's basically the top weapon that black has against the Evans Gambit in all of the lines. We have pawn to d4, striking in the center, e captures on d4, and now pawn to e5. Of course, now the queen no longer guards the d4 pawn, so you will be able to recapture. We have queen to g6, and now c captures on d4. And again, we reach a moment where the game has been played by some very, very strong players. For example, in 2001, Jeroen Piquet played it against none other than Nigel Short, and he played knight to a5, which is a very human move. You want to attack the queen, go after the bishop. You eliminate the bishop, and you feel very happy. Basically, whenever you play against the Evans Gambit, it's kind of, okay, you take care of the light square bishop, and the Evans Gambit sort of loses its edge. But here we have knight captures on d4, not going for the move that Nigel Short fell victim to, but rather knight captures on d4, which is better, although it's very hard for humans not to do this, because this queen-bishop battery, you just do not want it there. You know that the bishop is coming to a3, and then the queen-bishop battery and the bishop on a3, I mean, that's just, why would you play against that? But okay, knight captures on d4, we have knight captures on d4, and now bishop captures on d4, attacking the rook on a1, we have knight to c3, and again, we reach known, I would say theory, not theory maybe, but known position, as this has been reached in one very, very interesting game, Henry Bird versus Mikhail Chigorin. It was played in Hastings in 1895, so 130 years ago, and the game ended in a draw because it continued with knight to h6. Chigorin played this knight to h6 move. He wanted the castle. Also, he added more support to this f7 pawn. But there was a really, really interesting move that sort of forces resignation. Even if maybe you don't have to resign, you will, because humans just cannot play such positions. What would you play in this position? It's really, really wild. So the move that has to be played is a knight to d5, and you give up the rook on a1. In the game, just bishop to e3 was played, offering a trade of dark square bishops, which doesn't really do all that much for white. But after knight to d5, now it's very, very dangerous, because it's not that easy. For example, you castle kingside, knight e7 check, you blunder the queen. So there's no castles kingside. What can you do? You can capture the rook on a1. But the thing is, and okay, of course, Bird saw all of this. I mean, he was strong enough to see all of this. But then you have to see queen to a3. And this is probably the move he missed, because here, if you see this position, black resigns. There's the threat of checkmate. The king cannot castle. Even if you could, you would lose a queen. Knight to c7 check is coming. And just to give you the best possible engine defense by black, pawn to c5 captures, and now knight to f5. Okay, you stop checkmate. Knight to c7 check, king to d8, knight captures on a8, and now queen to c6. Okay, you offer a queen trade, but now queen captures on a7, and again, nothing for you to do. There's literally nothing here. You capture the bishop, for example, and you can't even, I mean, what is there to do? You can capture on c4, queen to a5 with check. You go to e8, all of a sudden bishop to a3. Again, just slices through here, slices through here, slices the knight coming to c7. The rook is attacking the bishop. You cannot capture as the queen is also guarding that. So you can play something like bishop to c3. You attack the queen, but then you fall victim to knight c7 check, king d8, knight e6 with a double check from the queen and the knight. And after king to e8, just a nice queen to d8 will be checkmate. So this was a pretty huge miss by Henry Bird, not exploiting knight h6 from Chigorin. But yeah, in those days, they really didn't think about, 130 years from then, from when we were playing it, some dude in Croatia will, show your games with an engine and just say, okay, you could have done this. But, that's the world we live in now. So after knight to c3, of course, EveAnn is rated 3100, will not play knight h6, goes knight to e7. And okay, now bishop to a3, again, a pretty standard Evans move. And the question is, what would you play here? This is so deep that I don't know if it's still, like I said, I don't know if they're still playing an arranged variation or they're already making their own moves. But the next move for black is so unique, and it's the only move that saves black. Otherwise, you're just going to have a terrible position. What would you play here for black, just to see if you can play a better move than a 3100 engine? So EveAnn 3.0 played pawn to a6, which still exists in theory. There is a game I found actually, but we'll talk about that when we leave that position. But here, a6 seems like a very natural move. You play a6, you play b5, you kick away the bishop, you also stop knight b5. The knight e7 has been played, so there's no knight to d5. It really looks like a move you want to play. But b6 is the move you have to play. And now black actually survives. And I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. Point is that now after knight b5, which sort of worked in all the other lines, okay, you give up the rook, you know that you don't need it. Knight captures on c7, and now after king to d8, rook captures on a1. And it's very easy to see up until this point. But even for an engine, to calculate, you would have to see, to play b6 in that position, engine would have to see some 20 moves ahead. And a unique line. Because here, if you capture on c7, which seems like a move that has to be played, then you capture on f7, next you're going to capture on e7, or you can defend the knight, for example, queen g5, and then you run into bishop d6 check, king to b7, and then a4, and then the black king just gets destroyed here. So the key is, after this rook captures on a1 move, not to capture the knight right away. You actually have to play some 13 more moves in order to be able to capture this knight. First, you play bishop b7. You threaten checkmate. And only now, after, let's say, f3 is played, which is the best reply, you go knight f5. You even allow knight captures on a8, and now after knight to d4, attacking the queen and threatening knight captures on f3, you go bishop to e7 with check. So you can move the queen with tempo if the bishop is captured, but of course black will not do that. So you capture on f7, and now after queen captures on f7, you go knight to c7 check, king captures, and only now queen to b4 with check. And after king to d8, you have a spectacular perpetual here. After queen captures on d4, king captures on c7. Finally, you capture the knight after the rook on a8 has also been captured. Queen to d6 check, and now look at this. King to d8, queen to b8 with check, bishop to c8, and now rook to c1, threatening to capture the bishop, so king to e7, and now if white doesn't want to be worse, white has to settle for a perpetual. Queen to d6 check, king to d8, and now again you just threaten this, queen d6 check, and we have a repetition here. So this is what you would have to see, and it's 40/15, so they have 15 moves to play 15 minutes to play 40 moves, so it's not that that much time, so it is possible to make such a mistake. Like I said, I don't know where they deviate from forced lines, but a6 was played, and it does not end well for black. But still, like we said in the beginning, bitbit is specialized for open tactical positions, EveAnn for closed positional setting. So this is, crazy stuff that happens here. We have rook a to d1, the Anderson move. Of course, when playing the Evans Gambit, you always have to play it. And whenever you see rook a to d1 in an Evans and the king is still in the middle of the board, that's probably game over. pawn to c5. Okay, defending the bishop. And now there is a really huge attack that white can employ here. What would you play here as white? Start the attack. Of course, it's the first move you check. Rook captures on d4. I don't think any of you were looking at any other moves. So, I mean, you guys are amazing players. C captures on d4, and now bishop captures on e7. And this is actually where we deviate from known theory. Not from known theory. There is a game that was played in 2009 between Serbian FIDE master, I believe, Milan Kandic, and David Brown, who was untitled at the time, from the Gambit Telecom Masters tournament in 2009, and the game finished with knight to d5. It was second best move, maybe bishop captures on e7 is more precise, but after knight captures, bishop captures, and pawn to a5, trying to get the queen to a6 and push b5. Queen b5 was played, and now queen to a6, offering a queen trade. Queen went back, pawn to b5, and now after bishop captures on f7, king to d8, and bishop to d6, the game concluded fairly quickly after a few moves. Bishop to b7 was played, queen g3, going after the g7 pawn. Queen to c6 was played, putting pressure on g2, but it's not really that impressive. Queen to g5 checking, to c8, and now rook to c1. And here, black resigned, David Brown resigned, as he will have to part with the queen and then just get checkmated. But here, after c captures on d4, bishop captures on e7 is played by bitbit, and it is now, as of move 16, that we have a completely new game. So let's see what happens here. D captures on c3. We have bishop to d6, now just preventing black from moving at all, and pawn to c2. We have rook to c1, and now pawn to a5. So if you look at the position, pretty standard. Black is up material, white is, well, up in position, so to say, but you will also lose the c2 pawn. Rook captures on c2, queen to h5, now going for queen to d1, and rook to c1. Stopping that, we have pawn to a4, getting the queen off of this nasty diagonal, and queen to c3. We have queen to g5, hopefully, you know, that c1 rook might become undefended if white blunders. Of course, white will not, as white is a very strong engine, but maybe some bishop b6, bishop b7, maybe you can put some pressure on that g2 pawn. And here, bishop to d5 was played, and now there is nothing that black can do here, and black gets absolutely destroyed. h6 was played, and he was in this position on move 22 that EveAnn 3.0 resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Sometimes engines will do this. Instead of just resigning, they play a move and then resign. I don't know what's the setting here, you know, in some engine tournaments is when the evaluation is over, you know, over +10 or over +20 or over +30, as different engines have different evaluations. So, you know, when that engine that has a worse position says, okay, I'm -20, I will resign, there's no point in continuing this. But I think it's even, you know, sooner than that. So here you resign. Basically, white can improve the position as much as white wants. Black has literally nothing to do here. But the threat is, for example, you cannot activate the rook even if you wanted, due to queen captures on c8. You can even play it right away. I mean, okay, you could improve the position first with some pawn moves, but queen captures just ends the game on the spot, because after some captures, you will also capture here, you capture here, and then it's two bishops versus the rook. But that's, you know, oversimplifying it. That rook will never see the light of day. You could play something like g5, try to activate the rook, but it's not happening. For example, g4, rook to h7 attacks the bishop, bishop g6, rook g7, and now bishop to f5, and that rook cannot enter the game ever. So it's merely a matter of, you know, getting the king up the board, gobbling up the queen side pawns, push the a pawn, win however you want. So yeah. It's as you've seen, it's a fairly standard line of the Evans Gambit. This Queen f6 line, for example, for black, everyone would be ecstatic to play this with black, because it's actually good to play this with black. But it's not easy. You know, you play one little mistake, that a6 move, which feels so natural, instead of that b6 move, and you fall apart entirely. So Nigel Short played it with white, he lost. Some other very strong players played it with white, they lost. And only, like I said, Serbian FIDE master Milan Kandic played it with white, and he won, and he played it all the way up to this position with knight to d5, and he won a very nice game. But it's something that I find, okay, here we're talking about a FIDE master, but sometimes I'll be analyzing, an engine game between Stockfish and Lila, rated, 3800, and, it's move 20, and I find, okay, there's a game from the Senior Championship of Australia, played in 2001, where, two unrated players played this game. Sometimes it happens, and, I think that's hilarious, but, I mean, yeah, so many games being played, some positions will simply occur. Sometimes you play a move, you don't even realize how powerful the move is. Or maybe these engines are not as strong as we think. So, you could go either way. Have your pick. But yeah, that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Another very nice game in the EveAnn Gambit, this time by bitbit 1.2. Hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Ricardo Paulin, Richard Schwartz, Brian Willits, Obaking, Rafaela, and Norman Duda for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and everything that's happening in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And really do use that hashtag suggestion. I always look at all of them, and, more often than not, find very, very beautiful games to show. See you soon.